Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Good evening. Today is Monday, July 12th, 2021. Welcome to this evening's regular meeting of the Oregon City Council. Let's begin tonight's meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council for attendance this evening?
Mr. Davish?
Here.
Mr. Horniak?
Here.
Mrs. Pollock? Here. Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Seaman? Mr. Wallensack?
Here.
Mr. Zale?
Here. Thank you, Ms. Evans. Please note that 6 members of the council are present. Mr. Seaman did reach out to me today. He has a family obligation that he has to attend to, but he will be here in a half hour to 45 minutes. Said. The first order of business, also joining us this evening, our clerk of council, Ms. Tina Evans, Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator, Mr. Michael Beasley, our Law Director, Melissa Purpura, Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman, our Finance Director, Ms. Darlene Huntermark, Police Chief, Mr. Brandon Began, Fire Chief Denny Hartman, and Assistant Fire Chief, Mr. Mark Mullins. Council, the first order of business would be the approval of the meeting minutes from the June 14th, 2021 regular meeting of council. Yes, Mr. Reeves.
I move to approve the minutes from June 14th, 2021 regular council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second by Mr. Zale. Council, is there any objections? Here are no objections. The meeting minutes are approved from the June 14th, 2021 regular meeting of council. Next, we will go to the persons and delegations. We have a number of people signed in today. I'll go down the list. We'll start with Ben Bosch. Ben, if you'd like to step forward. When you step forward, if you can state your name and address so we can have it for the public record, please.
Thank you. My name is Ben Bosch. The address is 2852 Pickle Road, which is Piccadilly Apartments.
Excellent.
And I had a couple questions for council. I've never been here before, so
Welcome.
I've seen on Facebook a number of issues that a lot of Oregon concerned citizens have, so I wanted to ask for myself.
Perfect.
I understand the city of Oregon is getting $3.8 million for COVID relief funds.
Let me have Mr. Beasley clarify that, but that was the original value that we were supposed to get. It has been reduced dramatically what we're getting from the government.
Okay. Other cities and states have designated some of this money that they've received for frontline essential workers. I'm wondering if the city of Oregon has any plans to do this. And I would like to give a brief description, although I don't want to get into my personal business, but for you to understand the situation, I'm probably going to have to. Back in March 2020, is there a time limit, by the way?
No, feel free.
Back in March of 2020, I was diagnosed with COVID by St. Charles Hospital. They did not do a test. They just did it by blood work. I was off for 2 weeks. I was fine. I was able to pay my rent, my car, my everything. Only thing I came short was with dog food. And there's somebody in this building here that helped me with that. That's here today. Thank God for Oregon citizens. They look out for one another. Okay. And I pay that forward. During the last few years, during COVID, my job consists of bringing product to people in the city of Oregon that they need, food, medicine, whatever. And my vehicle has put on 60,000 miles in 1 year. I have a 2015 Nissan Altima that now has 160,000 miles on it. But I go in and out of the nursing homes, the hospitals. I deliver to Mrs. Ackerman on Bury Road a lot. I previously worked at Food Town for 20 years. And you know, they all closed up. Yeah. And I had health insurance through Food Town. These last 20 years or 15 years, I might as well say, I was relying on my wife's insurance because she worked at St. Charles Hospital. As a result of COVID, she got so disgusted with working at the hospital, she just up and quit October of last year. And she even went as far as to move out of the city of Oregon, didn't want nothing to do with Oregon, me, or the hospital anymore. So there I go. I have no health insurance now. So is any of this COVID relief, could it go for, I mean, I'm well able to pay my rent. I'm well able to pay my car. I'm well able to pay my utilities. I'm well able to pay my food. My rent, when I first moved into Piccadilly, was $400. Then it went up to $550. Then it went up to $660 with the promise of brand new appliances. No appliances in 7 months, they said, because of COVID. Now they want to raise it over to $700. Robert J. Lloyd passed away. New owner is Link Realty. Okay. I don't have a problem paying $1,000 a month. But if my car goes out because of excess mileage, because I'm serving the city of Oregon, delivering product to them every day, 6 days a week, and then on my day off, also, I have a secondary job. My primary job, I work 48 hours a week. They do not provide medical coverage at all. They can't afford it. In fact, if it wasn't for the money they got from the government, they would have closed up because of COVID. So is any of this COVID relief money you guys are getting from the city of Oregon, could it help in any way? Not only just me, but there's a lot of other city residents that are in the same situation I am. They're struggling. You know, if the car goes out, they ain't gonna be able to work. They have no health insurance. I understand, like Toledo might have something called CareNet. I don't know if Oregon has anything or not.
Well, first, I would like to say thank you for your service to the community. People like you are tremendous, and you provide a great service to the community, and we are thankful to have people like you that do service the community. Secondarily, I would have to pass it on to Mr. Beasley. I don't know how the administration is planning on separating those monies, but I do know that dollar figure got reduced dramatically, and he can explain that to you.
Also, Mayor Edward Schimmel, city mayor of the city of Northwood, has helped me out and my soon-to-be ex, because she took off in October and she's not planning on coming back. She just got fed up. I mean, it was nothing with our relationship.
Sure.
He had us in a plan, 5-year plan, because of all the medical bills because of COVID. She worked in the hospital. She was sick constantly. Luckily, I only got sick once. I did get sick twice, but I came back non-COVID. Exactly a year from the first time. He had us in a plan, a 5-year plan to pay our medical bills, and we were each paying $100 a month. And when she left, she quit paying her part. So that got dismissed. So I'm now responsible for that $500,000 also. So, I mean, I'm just asking, what could this COVID money go toward? Could it go toward a car? Could it go for health insurance? Could it go for medical bills?
And I would have to defer to Mr. Beasley because I know there's restrictions and strings attached to the monies that we receive.
Because I don't need it for rent. I mean, I make plenty of money with that.
Well, let's see if Mr. Beasley can answer it for us.
Mr. President, members, just in general, we were going to discuss this as an agenda item later on. Well, since you asked the question, we'll go through a little bit of it now. We were originally scheduled to get about $4 million, just under that, and now it's been reduced to just about $2 million by the state legislature. In general, when you look at cities and governments across Ohio, most of them actually had no loss in revenue from COVID. The property tax dependent communities, they collected taxes about 98 cents on the dollar, and they expect to then recoup all of those. In addition to that, the sales tax dependent communities came in about flat to a slight growth, so they didn't have a loss in revenue from COVID impact on their dollars. I'm talking about the government services side. The income tax dependent communities, and that's primarily cities and villages to an extent, were down from about 2 to 9%. And there's probably 2 outlier communities in our region. I think Sandusky, because of their hotel motel tax dependent, and Cedar Point dependents had a major economic hit. And the city of Oregon, though, had the largest hit that I'm aware of in the region by far. In general, Oregon lost a little bit more than 20% of our income tax revenue because some of our largest employers stopped working.
Right, right. Because
So
we stayed open and we were still delivering to the residents when all these other places up and down the bar closed at 8 o'clock.
Sure, but it was
McDonald's,
primarily
Burger King, yeah.
the oil industry shut down primarily. And so our income tax revenue had about a $4.7 million loss in revenue. And then over about a $5 million total loss in revenue. So our $2 million in revenue will be used to make up 2 out of that $5 million of lost revenue. Most communities ended up with a kind of a better place financially because there was 2 sets of dollars that came into local governments last year and to local businesses as well. The workers' compensation system, because there had been overpayments for years, essentially passed out what was a dividend or it was in the form of almost like a stimulus check that went out to businesses and local governments. And in addition to that, there was the federal CARES Act dollars that went out last year. Most communities came out net ahead of that. For Oregon, we still came out short. So this $2 million, the expectation is, though council will vote on it, we don't have any in yet. But at some point we expect to get $1 million this year, something like that, about $1 million, maybe $1,050,000 or just under $1 million, depending on how the service fees come out. And about the same thing next year, 12 months later. So the council will have to vote with that in legislation at some point in the future, how to do that. Some communities that had no loss, that actually had in some ways a windfall, were looking to do that elsewhere, use that to help provide relief for businesses. It is more generally counties that have a county welfare department that were looking to do that sort of thing. City doesn't have a welfare department, and they aren't traditionally good at, to be honest, passing out money to individuals. It's hard because maybe you deserve it, but George doesn't, and on down the list.
As far as welfare goes,
Yeah.
Medicaid allows you to make $17,000 a year. I'm well over that.
Sure.
I'm double over that.
Sure.
Maybe triple over that.
But there are systems that I know that
can't get
the county will be looking at ways to deal with that. And the federal stimulus dollars that went to individuals, that purpose was to do that. So that's our understanding of it. Oregon has not made a decision on that, on its choices on that yet, but long-term, it will have to be kept in a separate account and accounted for. But long-term, our expectation is that those dollars won't even make up for the revenue that was lost to the Oregon's taxpayers, because as opposed to other communities that actually came out net ahead, just on a cash flow, obviously. And one of the challenges we all know is this wasn't a one-size-fits-all crisis. We had families that had horrible health consequences, families that had horrible economic consequences. Other families, I have families with friends with businesses that had their best years ever, some that had their worst years ever. So has been the general expectation, as I've been in discussions around the state on those dollars, is that the federal relief dollars and the federal stimulus checks were supposed to, that was the best way to go to individuals, because it's harder for local governments to get that right and to make a judgment about you versus Mary or Steve or George. Those are hard judgments for cities to make. And again, for Oregon, because we were we're the biggest outlier I know of where our actual revenue fell about $5 million cash to cash because of now we were helped by 2 forms of stimulus, the workers' comp dollars and some workers' comp dollars and the CARES Act dollars that came in last year. It came in with some certain strings, but ultimately the city still is short of the revenue we would have had we not had COVID. So that's the challenge for Oregon. We're not as likely a candidate for it. We do not currently have a plan for checks for individuals. That's
basically, maybe I'm understanding this wrong, but you're saying you're going to use that money for the city.
That's the current plan, is to meet service needs.
Okay.
But we haven't,
St.
with no
Charles-
legislation passed yet.
St. Charles did offer Cobra, $1,300 a month. Too expensive.
Yeah.
The Obamacare marketplace, whatever that's called, same price, $1,300 a month for healthcare. I mean,
Those are
what
tough
do you
numbers.
do?
If you want to give me a call, the office, I might be able to hook you up with an agency that can help you get you in a direction that might help.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
If Tina has your number, you can give Tina your number or whatever.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
track
on
you
the-
down.
It's on the sheet there.
Okay, we'll track you down. All right.
right.
I appreciate your service though.
Thank you very much. Next on the list is Steve Salander. Steve, would you step forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
name is Steve Salander, and my address is 2435 East Vale Avenue here in Oregon. I just have a couple questions, maybe a couple parts of a question here, mostly for you, Mr. Beasley. So my first question is, if I remember correctly, you had said at a previous meeting that you do not receive pay from Toledo. Is that correct?
I have not ever. That's since
Ever?
15, 20 years ago when I worked there last.
Okay, okay. So do you have an office or anything in one government center?
I do not.
Have you at any point within the last, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks or so even offered any sort of advice or anything to the city of Toledo or to the mayor?
I talked to,
Not this
Mr.
one, I
President.
meant,
I do talk to the mayor of Toledo and other mayors of other cities in this region from time to time. I do give advice when asked to other communities. I haven't been paid when I started here, when the mayor asked me to come to work here, I did have contracts with 2 agencies that I was working with. I told them when those lapsed, I would not have any other employment with another jurisdiction. And I have not.
okay. I want to just clarify that
good.
for myself and
Sure.
others. My other question is, and I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if this is a question that you can answer or anybody here can answer, but my question has to do with the Oregon Economic Foundation. 2 questions with that. One was, I sent them an email last Wednesday afternoon with some questions that I never heard anything back. So hoping maybe you could help me with that. So my first question is if the Oregon Economic Foundation, if that is a for-profit or a nonprofit, or how does that
Mr. President,
titled or whatever you want
to
to call it?
my knowledge, it is an Ohio not-for-profit corporation. It's not a charitable organization, but it's a not-for-profit.
Okay, because I was curious. I didn't see anything on the Secretary of State, so I was kind of curious on that. The other thing, again, if you know the answer or can direct me where to get the answer, I was looking on their website and it does show on there who the gold investors are for the foundation. But I didn't see where all the investors or everybody who is an investor in that foundation is. Would you be able to, or would anybody be able to direct me or provide me with a listing of who those people were or who those individuals or businesses?
Mr. President, I don't know who they are, but that's up to the foundation. I don't know who they are, but that's up to the foundation to decide what
Okay,
that's their situation. So,
they're not very good at answering any questions apparently.
well,
So,
I can answer questions, but I don't
no,
know.
no, not you. I said they.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure. Yeah, that's between them and, yeah.
Yeah, they're not too open about it. So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next is Ms. Price. Ruth?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, Council, please excuse me, I'm losing my voice permanently, so pretty soon you won't have to put up with me. So it's a little hard to hear sometimes. I'm coming tonight for a request. Oregon owns several pieces of property, and I would like the addresses of them and how much the city paid for them and what you have in mind to use them for. And I would like this information by next week. And now I'm going to turn it over to Beth Ackerman, and then when she's done, I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Price. Ms. Price,
Yeah, we should follow the order.
what we'll need is talk with us after the meeting so we make sure it's properly addressed for you. Right? So we make sure we got everything under the proper understanding, get you what you need. Excellent. Thank you. And Beth, you are next on the list. Yep. So Beth, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Beth Ackerman, 931 Bury Road, Oregon, Ohio, 43616. We did get quite a bit of information from the Freedom of Information Act, and I thank you for that, Ms. Or you're not Ms. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. It was quite a bit. It was kind of a blow to the gut, finding out that you guys had been that busy for that long on something that didn't exist. Anyway, I try to not go off on tangents, but I wanted to say that I'm standing before you this evening, which honestly, I know I should feign diplomacy, as some of you do so very well, yet I am exceedingly resentful of you all. Not so much all of you as some others, but anyway, I would say those that were more involved in the Project Maximus delusion of mine, I guess, that became a reality. This administration has not been honest to its citizens. You would all still be busy in the shadows, spending our tax dollars, mapping Project Maximus, which I gotta ask you, who come up with that one? Who named it?
Mr. President? No idea. That is a name, as far as I know, that came from the State Economic Development Agency that they
Why
sent to
does no
us.
one ever, why is no one ever here that represents, I mean, you belong to the Oregon Economic Development, right? And you were in on all of the back and forth with the emails.
Mr. President, it didn't come from the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. It came from the state of Ohio.
The
as far
state
as
of
I-
Ohio gave it that?
Yes.
So how long ago did you ask them to slap that moniker on it?
We never heard of
They
it
just
until they said, yeah.
automatically, it
They-
just came to you as?
Yes.
Wow.
So
Well,
they-
if there was a correspondence in the Freedom of Information Act that said that, but there wasn't. So anyway, so mapping Project Maximus to alter the entire landscape to wreck the balance of natural world and industry that is Oregon, devoid of any conscience. Who are we? Your public, your taxpayers, and in some cases, we thought we were your friends. Since March of 2020, and I have no doubt longer than that, you have been scheming to turn Eastern Oregon into an industrial zone. It isn't enough that you brag to have, quote, more industrial space per square mile than any place in the US, unquote, according to the Oregon Economic Development Foundation website. You all feel the need to destroy what you see as undeveloped land, but many of us see as wetland, great black swamp, woodland, and farmland. It is quite obvious from all of the Freedom of Information Act materials dating back to mid-March 2021 that you all have zero concern for the migratory birds, the nesting eagles, air and water quality, the carbon offset of these old-growth wetland woods, or the biodiversity that dwells within them. How can those of us that care about the green spaces that remain in Oregon not have utter contempt for what you are trying to do? You all have denied the existence of Project Maximus right to our faces, which just boggles my mind, the lack of transparency and the lack of, I will not say bad words, the lack of concern on your part for what the public would care to see in our city. It seems like that you guys think it's all on your plate and all up to your discretion what to do with our property. So you think you can change the use on a whim in a breakfast diner somewhere. If we belonged to the Toledo Rotary in 2020, then we would have heard Mr. Beasley share his desire to see a cracker plant in Oregon. In the same breath that he brags about meeting with Regional Growth Partnership to find 500 acres in Oregon to industrialize. And I happen to have the clip, in case you guys don't go to our page. But this was from the Toledo Rotary 2020, over a year ago.
The challenge that we get is, where do we run that next gas line? Right now, we're working on places of that gas line, and what sort of spin-offs can we get from that? How do we create value? Do we welcome those things? Is there a place that wants to host a cracker? Or do we all think, oh, I don't want a cracker here? That's something that makes the various polythanes and takes and makes plastics and those sorts of things, car parts and those pieces. That we think we could produce an economic driver as big as a refinery. We've got to find a good location to host it. And I have a meeting Thursday with the RGP. We're actually sitting and looking at places where we could put a 500-acre facility if we can run a gas line to it, if we can attract that sort of investment. Because this low.
Well, it goes on and on, but I didn't want to misquote you.
President?
Mr. Beasley?
I think if in context, that discussion at the time was not about Oregon, Ohio. It was about the region. And we were specifically talking about some of the lands along 280 south of Oregon that a gas line runs along.
So you
that
weren't
serves.
working for Oregon in March of 2020?
I was working for Oregon, but the conversation was about regional economic development partners, about locations where we could put
So it's a
possible development.
coincidence that you're working on Project Maximus, which is about 400 plus acres, originally if you had your way. So it's just a coincidence.
It's
That's
not
what
a
you're telling me.
Mr. President, it's not a coincidence at all. Project Maximus had never been heard of until spring of this year at some point. We had discussions as a region with economic officials from Oregon, from Wood County, from Lucas County, from other communities around here, talking about some of the townships, about where are locations that we could assemble land for projects to put people to work across the region. And that's what that discussion was about. It
So
wasn't about
your
Oregon.
value added was for the region and not for Oregon.
In that conversation, yes. Oregon, though, we were there to market our spaces. At the time, it hadn't, to be honest, it hadn't occurred to us to look to assemble a place that far east. We hadn't talked about it till this spring. We had some conversations and we started talking about it.
Well, I would encourage you all to listen to the entire presentation by Mr. Beasley and see if you come away with the same context that I do, because I would have to say that if it's left to you being honest about it, good luck with the public. I would say, yeah, I don't know, the cracker plant. So are you saying there's no chance of a cracker plant ever coming to Oregon, Ohio?
I think there's no chance because I don't think we have any interest in it.
No one would have interest. You would
We
not
don't have an interest in it.
You're going on the record to say no cracker plant.
Absolutely.
And the council, you would not back a cracker
I-
plant in Oregon, Ohio?
I told you that in our conversation.
No,
Mr.
I know, but.
Mr. President, just as a note, for several years, we have talked about the fact that we were looking for non-smokestacky industries that we could attract. And the reason we talked about that in that meeting is that we didn't think there's very many places. And then that economic development meeting at Rotary, and that was kind of a follow-up to a talk I gave at the Oregon Rotary Club, I think a few weeks before that, and then they asked me to come to the regional club meeting.
So you're okay with a cracker plant
In a community that wants it, in a community that wants it.
Any community that wants it.
Yeah, in
Okay,
in a
but
community that wants it, but we didn't
I'm
think,
overjoyed to hear you all say you
Sure.
would not want to put a cracker plant
The-
in
the point-
Oregon, Ohio.
we told, we,
No, I've never.
Mr.
talked to you
President,
about a cracker
we made
plant.
the point one of the points we were making in the discussions is that we feel like Oregon has hosted its share of heavy industry.
Thank you.
And that we didn't think that places where they assemble things, plants that can be attractive and landscape well, that aren't, high emitters, those are the things that we are.
Highly flammable things like lithium batteries.
That's right. Well, we make flammable things here in other places too. There's
Right.
assembly that can be done well here.
Well,
And that's the sort of thing we're interested
try
in.
to keep it in one section of the city, not
But-
bookmark the
But
bookend it.
our point we have made as we've discussed this and with the community as well, is that we feel like we've hosted our share and that we think some other places should be looking around for some of those locations. And we're aware of some other communities that are interested.
Well, I think we've hosted our share of industry, I don't think we need any more, and we certainly don't need to turn it into Gary, Indiana, and have the whole eastern side of it, as Mr. Sparian said he hopes to pursue. So
Wait a minute, tell me what I proposed to pursue.
you said, not about the correct, you said the last council meeting, where you were asked outright, were you going to continue to pursue industrial and eastern from Stadium on, and you said yes, correct?
That is,
So, yeah, so you were going to, and now that you bring that up, like you said, they quoted you as saying, will we continue? Yes, that's the only site in Oregon that has ample power, ample gas, ample water, a rail service, and more than 200 acres. The material that you posted, when you posted our property for sale, along with the Rudies and the Cusions, it was great because I printed it off before you could take it down.
we didn't post that out.
Okay, well, it's Summer Vreezelar again, mysterious Summer Vreezelar, who happens to be in the back and forth with all the Project Maximus between Mr. Beasley, Mr. is it Lang? Well, your deputy. Yeah, Mr. Schultz, he's in there on all of them. He's copied on all of them. You're copied. I mean, you're hardly ever copied on anything. So you're copied on everything. Anyway, so I don't know, maybe you guys should have talked before you said that, because when you listed our property for sale, you did have in there Pardon?
I didn't listen.
You guys play this semantics game with the Oregon. It's like a shell game. It's not us. It's the Oregon Economic Development. You give them the money. You're on board with them. You're responsible for what they do. You can't just put it off on Summer, or you better start bringing Summer to these meetings.
We weren't posting, they weren't posting anything for sale. They're saying-
$30,000 for sale, yes. You should read your own stuff, man. I'm telling you.
Well,
No,
You
this is
talk,
what it
you
says,
talk, you-
Mike. This
All
is
right.
what it, okay. So when
You
you
want me to
said
respond to
there's
it?
there are ample utilities on
yeah,
site,
correct.
utilities, electric at site, no. It would be, they're 1.5 miles away. It would take 3 to 5 years to complete system upgrades to the site. It talks all about what all it would take to bring that to the site. Gas at site, no. It's approximately a mile away. The estimated cost would be 1.5 million. I'm sure that's taxpayer dollar probably.
No.
No, you just pull it out of. So,
Well,
okay,
you're-
if not locally, then state or federal, or is that magic money?
The people seeking to put the development would be
They
responsible.
would pay for all of that. But the point is, you say there's ample at the site. There is not. Gas at site, no. Electric at site, yeah, it's like it's the water, you have a 18-inch line. I saw all the back and forth. You already have figured to put in a 24-inch line. You've already done all your homework through the city for the magical project that nothing's going on here. And you treated us like we were crazy when you were lying the entire time and you knew this was a project in the works, which then you can only wonder why we don't have a lot of confidence in you guys telling us the truth. You also said there's no sewer it would have to be brought to the site. So your quote was that's the only place in Oregon with all of those ample utilities, which is not accurate.
It is to me.
That's close enough?
Yes,
Close but no cigar?
yeah. And if you would let me expand on that. All right, all of those things are not on the site, but they're practical in the amount of money it would take to get them there, that the potential developers would pay.
So.
All right, but if it costs $20 million to get a sewer there and $3 million to get, if you add it all up to get all the things to the site, then the site wouldn't be viable for
But in your
consideration.
opinion, the
That
site's
was viable, 'cause
perfectly
if we bought-
viable.
Yeah, because
with-
if we bought property for 20,000 acre,
Mhm.
sold it for 30,000 acre, it would take into account to pay for all of those upgrades that would, that's why this is the property, we weren't making profit on the property. It would take care of the extensions of each of those services.
So you just pay to get it there.
What?
It's not there, but you'd pay to get it there.
The project would take that into consideration to pay. That's why if we were marketing that property
Mhm.
for $30,000 an acre, it would take that much to pay for those the things to be extended to that parcel.
Okay. But
So.
the only reason you're not marketing the property is
You come-
because we called you out on listing
Well,
it
no,
without our
because
permission and. yeah.
We wouldn't be marketing anything if we didn't have someone interested in purchasing it or moving there. So you say that we're gonna magically put this project
No, I'm
in.
saying,
Yeah, you said we're sneaking in.
no,
couldn't
you
do it.
are
We had-
sneaking it in.
We, to be even a consideration, we had to show that we could produce a parcel like that. All right, so if we can produce it and there's still interest, then we would come, set up our public hearings here and let everybody know what is a possibility there. And you keep saying, we're not, just stick it in.
Yeah,
No, it's
no,
just a
you-
possibility.
It's
a
when
possibility.
it comes to zone, you've already spent, I know how untold amounts of money to do
Very
all
low.
this studying, to figure out, we have all the maps.
Yeah,
All the back and
all right, so
forth. There's a lot of, you guys have invested a lot of time and money into setting this into motion. You had a buyer you were trying to lure to the site who, by the way, SK Innovations, the South Korean company, the one that did the plant in Atlanta that hired non-union workers. that brought them in and ICE busted a bunch of them for paperwork, the ones that stole trade secrets and
That's not,
you,
they were not part of
That's not
You-
part of this deal. I don't know where you come up with that.
you
but
did not have a South Korean firm that was looking at that site.
There was a firm that I believe South Korean Ford Motor Company were,
So which
Partnerships.
Korean, South Korean firm was it? You gotta know it's big
no,
money.
no.
it. It is not disclosed to us when we discuss it.
I can get online and tell you which companies are working with which car manufacturers in the United States.
The state does not disclose that information to us when we talk to them. They don't do it.
He made the comment to me, and in fact, you said, Asians like bare ground. Because I said, why aren't you putting this up in the industrial area? And your answer to me was, Asians like bare ground. They want to come in and build on farm ground. You're gonna call me a liar again?
No, I didn't call you a liar ever, and I won't call you now. I said what you said. Why don't they tear down, if the refinery would go down one, they tear that down. I said, no, they want to come in on their own virgin ground.
So what the
Yeah,
steel
yeah.
plant did is unthinkable, where they went into golf and they went into a brownfield and they got good money to revitalize an existing brownfield. But you want to cater to foreign interests to buy American soil to appease them, but yet you can't even have a simple public meeting with us to find out if we even care to have anything like that change of use in
We
our
would have
city.
that. We
When
would
you
have.
get your ducks in a row,
Yeah.
see, you gotta
We didn't have a
realize.
project without it. Beth, you
Mike,
can sit back
You know
there.
you're trying to lock down the owners, you know you're trying, without talking to the general public, you were trying to put this in, look, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if
You give me
if
a lot
we
of
didn't
credit
go
for
to the
having a lot of
public.
power that I
No,
just
I
don't
give him
have.
a lot of credit
Yeah.
for.
Well, you
because
don't
his
give
name's-
either of us
His
much
name is
credit for
copied
it.
on the emails, yours isn't.
Yeah.
So I just
You-
gotta say, you guys, we wouldn't even be here. This wouldn't even be a conversation. You guys would still be carrying on, trying to pull this off. And then you'd come up and say, we've spent all this money, we spent all this time, and we got a buyer and all our ducks in a row, and we're gonna do this. And then you're gonna dare people to you would pass. You would pass the zoning change.
I don't know that.
Mr.
Okay,
President, just
then you wouldn't be putting your time and effort into it if you didn't think you could.
it's-
pull
We
it
put
off.
our time and effort into things constantly, and we'll continue to put things in constantly. We just told you, we're $5 million short this year of revenues we didn't collect. We know we'll be short next year. The money we're getting from the COVID relief will not compensate for it. So we're gonna be looking at
I knew
things
you were gonna
constantly.
go to that, so I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
have to
Mr.
tell
President,
ya.
just.
Mr.
As
Beasley-
for your threats to
Mr.
cut city
Mr. Ackerman?
services, if you all can't make the ends meet with all of the industry we already have in
It's not a
Oregon.
threat.
Ms.
That's
Ackerman,
not a threat.
let Mr. Beasley answer that, and then we'll get to that
Okay,
part of it.
all right, go ahead.
I think it's important, you asked a question saying that this was going in some different way. Over the last 25 years in Oregon, and longer than that I'm aware of, every project that has been developed, but many more that were never developed, all went about the same way. So that, let's take some examples. Someone put in a Walmart store. Someone went out and acquired options on property. And then they had a public hearing. The room was full. There was a raucous for and against. The community had a lot of people who didn't want Walmart coming to town. They had neighbors that thought it was going to be too noisy. This was before my time, but I was aware of it. I was county administrator at the time, I believe. And the community made the choice, even though to move ahead with it. Similarly, for the Home Depot store across the street and down at the Dairy Depot site, there was someone went out and acquired options from the families that had that farmland there to put in a Home Depot, and a Kohl's store was going to come in right behind it, next door to it. And the community, this was a very full chambers, and the community decided to put conditions on, even though the city had a lot of investment and time in it. The council voted no, essentially, on the project, and then they moved out to Route 20 in Wood County for that project. Same with the Bay Park Hospital. Came exactly the same way. They had options on 2 different parcels from several different sets of landowners. They had a very full room and argued back and forth. They went ahead with that project. The thing that happens more often, though, is what happened here. It happened in the same way. There was a drugstore chain that was interested in going on Navarre, just the other side of Wheeling. So where the residential side is at Navarre and Wheeling on the west of Wheeling on the north side. And they were looking to acquire all those parcels between Hollydale and Navarre. And people went and knocked on the doors of those homeowners. I think most of them wanted to say yes. Some said no. The project went away. That's the same thing that happened in this project. Someone knocked on the door. In this case, it was the mayor, directly talked to each property owner.
Most property owners.
Well, until the project
Yeah.
there wasn't no interest in it at one point.
But he said he's going to continue to pursue.
Well, we're
doing
going to pursue options going forward. But what the mayor said at the time was that in this case, there was a project that the state had proposed that said, if you can assemble land, you can compete for it. We said, well, let's try and
So
compete for
this
it.
was the state's idea.
Well, there's not a state idea. There are projects looking for land and development. The state communicates that.
The state came to you and said,
Came to the
you have a
foundation.
place for it.
You have a place for it. And
Okay.
we
I
said, well,
want to see
let's.
that in writing
with-
somewhere, because I heard a lot of
Well, they
theories
post them,
about-
they post them on their,
Oh, so I would see it. I could find
well,
it.
it's through their economic development organization, Jobs Ohio. which
But there
is-
should be a paper trail to it, right?
I don't know.
Okay, just not that it matters where it originated, but
But in any event, there are projects that are proposed there.
like
and we-
Worthington Steel.
And we decided to submit for that. The property owners said, not all the property owners were interested. You were one that wasn't interested. The project moved on, right? Now, the question is that you asked and the mayor answered last meeting. We believe as administration that we should continue to ask the community, do we have a place to host some industries? Ultimately, we know that nobody can sneak or do anything without numerous public hearings as required by Ohio law, through plan commission, through zoning, through land use to say, is this community interested in hoping this? As we discussed it, knew that there's some possibility it would never happen. The vast majority of projects that we discussed from an economic development perspective never happen. For every 25 you talk about, 22 of them never get beyond early conversation stage.
Lytle.
You do up maps. Well, that is a little different story. They changed nationally. They changed all their plans for Ohio, but even mostly industrial side. They talk about a site, they look around and they say, hey, would you be interested in talking to Oregon? They say, could you assemble land? We say, maybe we could. If it gets to the stage where people are interested, then it goes to the next level. This never got to that point.
So are you saying though?
We
that-
spent more money on Lido than we did on this.
I was disappointed about Lytle. I
Sure.
called them and asked them to sponsor the German American.
Sure, so were we.
Festival. So yeah.
We thought they would have been
I
good
was
for that.
disappointed.
So we thought,
But the long story short is you're saying you're no longer trying to put an industrial park between,
the city, right, the city has done nothing, no one has take any further action on options since our last meeting.
We've activated no options.
And so the question for the community, and we're gonna, I think, talk about scheduling a meeting, we have to consider as a community is this something we should continue to talk about or stop? The foundation and the administration believe, right or wrong, that we see it as our job to present options to the council and the community. The community says no lots of times.
Mhm.
Whether it be for the Home Depot or for things that, on some things that we felt they were not attractive at all, we didn't want to submit for them at all. Certain projects that were too stacky, things like crackers and things like that, we're not interested in.
Can I share something with
Sure.
you that, that this is when you wonder why we're so like bird crazy, eagle
Sure.
crazy, environment crazy, water crazy, all
We're
that.
not saying those things.
Okay, all right. Well, something you did say really, really upset me and a lot of people. So this was at that same,
Road meeting.
yeah, Rotary Club meeting on 3/9 of 20. And you said this and it really made my heart sink.
Mhm.
And again, there's environmental pushback, which whatever course you take, there's people pushing back on wind right now. I happen to think they kind of look kind of cool on the horizon, but that's a question of taste. Some people are offended by seeing the evaporating water coming off of a gas plant. Some people don't want to see that. I don't think it's hurting many birds, but that's what I hear every time we talk about it. We had a big fight about sighting them in Oregon because of the Lake Erie flyway and the birds. So those are challenges we're going to face with any type of energy we choose.
Yeah, Mr. President. The point I was
I mean,
making.
your disregard, I mean, you're honestly, And the fact that we got such a pile of material from the Freedom of Information Act, and in it, there was not one mention, not one reference, not one anything about environmental impact or.
Mr. President, look, let me say. The point that I was making there, and I was trying to make clearly, maybe I didn't make it very clearly, is that whatever form of energy a community looks to turn on its air conditioning when it was 93 degrees like last week, or blow a fan, or provide, help a manufacturing plant work, there's environmental pushback, no matter what it is. Some people don't like the way wind turbines look. Some people worry about the wind. Some people think, boy, natural gas is great, but they don't like the look of the steam. I'm making the point that is real, that whichever choice you make, there's pushback.
But if you'd have made the point that revitalizing our existing brownfields and our existing industrial area, instead of going and using up, a earth kidney, I'm tearing up green space. I'm just saying, I just
That's a fair
didn't see
point.
anything in there that would indicate that you guys care about the environment. So that's alarming. So then when you tell me, I don't think a lot of birds were hurt.
Well, we're talking
No,
about,
that's
we're
kind
talking
of
about the wind
upsetting.
turbine
I know
over
what
at
you
the
were
school.
talking about.
Over at
Yeah,
the
and
school.
I know, and like the project that was killed, I think it's in Putnam County, where they want to put another 20 some, where they were, convinced that was not environmentally
I was talking about the wind
sound.
turbine at our high
Right,
school.
right.
Some
Well,
liked
I'm
it, and
just
some don't.
saying, the science is that
But
they
whatever,
aren't everything they're.
whatever choice we make, there's pushback. I
Right,
know that,
Right, and
that-
I'm the pushback.
well, no, but there's,
No, I am.
those are hard decisions. Gasoline, I mean, I bike to work some days. Almost everybody else drove here.
Like,
All right? I mean, so I
like the
bike to work.
lady at your Oregon Economic Development Zoom meeting said she's from Regional Growth Partnership. She's like, you have to get rid of your obstacles. You have to get rid of what's in your way of achieving this goal of your industrial thing. And I was like, oh, okay, I got it. But look,
Okay.
so long story short, you're going to look to continue. If you've got anybody that was willing to sell to you, you're going to continue.
You want me to respond to that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've talked to 5 people that had interest in signing the option, okay? And we have activated none of them. We're seeing, once again, you said I threatened to cut city services. I said, if we continue to be down on revenues,
Mhm.
I'm very good with math, but this is simple arithmetic. If we are used to operating the city on around $21 million a year, and we now have 17 million, 21, 22 million, I think is about the normal flow of money we get coming here. And if we're down to 17 million, something's got to give.
Right.
All right,
So
it's
I
just a
think
simple
a
math.
forensic accountant would be perfect
Huh?
for this situation. I think that's the route we're going.
What?
Before we cut services or give raises, I think that, the
right,
citizens are going to
so-
want to see some.
All right,
forensic
and we
accounting.
have all that.
Okay.
We have all
Well,
that.
no, we would get
We
our
can
own.
really easy, huh?
It's like a home inspector. You do yours and we'll get our stuff.
Yeah, and you do, in
All
the
right.
meantime, one latitude you have that I don't, or none of us back here do. When you make comments on social media, you can say whatever you want. Everything we have is, we're tethered to the truth and we have to answer to it.
When
We
you
will.
sit in Oregon Inn, you say whatever you want, don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. You know what? When I sit there and then when you say, I am sitting there getting drunk and saying, she did. About 5 people told me, Beth Ackerman told me that.
Okay, you
I've
were
had-
just very, very loud for no apparent reason.
All right, Beth.
Okay.
Last year, I want to
Mayor-
take this.
Mayor, let's
No,
let's
you're
keep
Oh,
this.
no, you did
I'm
too.
just saying, freedom of speech exists for us both. That's
All
all
right.
I'm saying.
You said that. Last year, in the year 2020, I had 6 drinks. In the
I
whole
don't
year.
care. If you
This
can
year,
drink
I've
anything-
had 4. So none of those times, I don't drink. I basically don't.
I don't care if you do or you don't. I do.
You make the comment.
I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, and at
You
the
did make
time,
that comment.
okay.
I will ask.
I wasn't
both of you-
sitting at the next
I'll ask
meeting.
both of you,
Tell the
let's keep
Okay.
personal stuff
Well, we
out
won't
of
discuss
this.
what you were saying so loudly with your free speech, but I just want to
But
say,
no, I'm not
okay.
transparent, so I don't say anything.
well,
Well, yeah, I talk, people hear me. Because
Okay.
you know what? I'm not ashamed of it.
good. I'm
Beth?
not ashamed of what I say either. That's a good thing. All right,
You can
so
continue, yeah.
we
Why
will
not?
just leave it at that. If you're going to continue, we would like to have some peace of mind that you're not putting a lithium battery plant over there in this green space. You're not putting a cracker plant. You're not putting anything with hazardous waste material over there anywhere east of Stadium Road. Can we have your word on that at this point? That is, right now, before you'd have public meetings on the matter?
Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President, from the administration's perspective, the public can be assured that this council and this city can never put anything like that in without an extensive public hearing process. It is up to every council and every administration and every property owner to have the right to sell or seek to do something. The administration and the foundation believe it is our job to present options. We believe that some of the things, again, most of the things we discuss never come to fruition because that's the nature of economic development. That right now we have no interest in anything very smokestacky or anything. It's not something we think Oregon has more than its share of those things.
Thank
We've
you.
said that from the beginning.
Thank you.
So when we did look at this project, we looked at it as an assembly plant that asked for almost zero emissions from the whole plant. We thought, I wonder if we could make that work there. And then when you say that we're gonna take out wetlands, that wooded area, we wanted to leave. Initially, they put in for that wetlands. I mean, they put a parking facility in as one of the possible layouts. We asked if they could move
How
that.
come we didn't get copies of these possible layouts?
All right. You were mad when the RGP put up a site that we were considering marketing.
Well, if you say
or-
this is a possibility, not, hey, this is for sale for $30,000, here are the, parcel numbers. And that, okay, can I ask one last thing and I'll go?
Yes, please.
Ms. Purpura, is there any legal standing for placing anyone in Oregon's private property for sale on a domain like Regional Growth Partnership, Oregon Economic Development? Is there something I don't know about because everything I've read said you have to have written consent of the landowner, or there has to be like an agreement that in place. Can the city of Oregon or any entity in Oregon put a private property for sale?
Mr.
Ms.
President,
Pura.
My understanding is the city of Oregon did not put your property up for sale. Secondly, I'm not aware of any type of legal standing that you would have. I'm not sure what you read, where that's coming from. If you want to share that with me, I can absolutely review it. As far as the law.
Shows our property, our parcel numbers for sale with, saying that they're available.
But again, my understanding is the city of Oregon did not post this.
It was
Second-
given to Summer Rieselar by someone. I
Mr.
don't
President,
think she pulled it out of the air.
just as a note, it's my belief that just like, I think we're in a hearing here when we're having a kind of a contentious discussion about the Kmart site. Someone had a flyer that a realtor had put up offering that for sale for a specific price. They had no one's permission to do that. They had the right to do it. They just chose to do it. If someone had offered that price, then they would have come to the property owner and asked them if they wanted to sell it. That's exactly what it happened.
So I can put any of your homes up for sale, and if I got a buyer, I get to come to you and say.
You could say, I have a buyer, would you take this money for it? And
You don't find it remotely intrusive?
I might find it remotely intrusive, yes.
Just make sure you get me enough money.
Well, it was, what?
Yeah, I understand.
I'm just saying, my understanding, there's no legal basis, and this may get even uglier because you got to rein in Oregon Economic Development Foundation. Apparently, Summer Rieselar doesn't have to answer for any of her actions, and I thought it was an isolated thing and maybe a goof. Maybe it was just a goof, but I have found multiple properties on that site, and the people were not aware they were on the site. So I would just say, and considering that she was copied on every map to do with Project Maximus, the young lady's got to have some accountability, and so does Oregon. You guys can't keep just hiding behind whatever she's doing, or I don't know. It's like this whole scapegoat game, but citizens are getting sick of it.
Yes, Mr.
Just a
Beasley.
note, and I guess I think we're planning on having a hearing on this general issue in a few weeks. But in general, we don't think we're not hiding behind the foundation. The foundation has a job to do to present options to the city. It's their job to look out and look for opportunities in general, they are typically, most of the time, responding to things that are coming to them from outside site selectors that said, we're looking for the sort of site, and then they'll
You're
post
on
something.
there as a broker.
That,
On some sites, your name, number, and your private email are on there as a broker in some cases, as Miss Frieslar is on there as a broker.
well, I've
Does
never
that
seen
word mean
that.
nothing?
I haven't seen it and don't know.
You guys need to look at your own stuff, I'm telling
Well, it's
you.
not mine. I haven't posted anything like that.
You guys, okay, you're part of Oregon Economic Development, you're not part of it. I mean, people are seeing through this smoke screen, it's getting old. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Next on our list is Kathy Ackerman. Yep, please step forward, Ms. Price.
I want to tell you, I'm 100% with Beth. And she and I talked about this little presentation I'm going to make, and I wrote it up, and I was going to do it, and I told Beth I'm not going to do it, and she says, no, I want you to do it. So you may not think this is any part of it, but it's something that I feel, and I want you to all think about it. It's about integrity. The meaning of integrity is a quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Mr. Beasley, I'm waiting for you to hear me and not visit. Moral uprightness. He's known as a man of integrity. My father was a man of great integrity. His name was Howard Schuffenecker. He was born on Cedar Point Road across from the refinery and raised there. He served in World War II as a sergeant in Germany. He was at the Battle of the Bulge. After the war, he came home to Oregon to his job at the Standard Oil at that time, where he worked for 40 years. As the years of hard work went by, he advanced to better jobs. In the last years, he was a boss bringing in contractors for specialty jobs. One of the contractors was Fondacy. It was a very small but local business here in Oregon with a good reputation. They were so dependable and had such special work ethics. They got their big start at the refinery. When my father died in 1995 of heart trouble, COPD, and emphysema, probably caused by the benzene that they used to handle with their bare hands in the early days. I bet you're wondering where this is going. When he died in 1995, he was laid out at Eggleston Minor Funeral Home. It was unbelievable, the amount of people that came. It was then that the showing was for 2 days. People I have never met before saying such a wonderful man he was, what wonderful values he had, what wonderful work ethics he had. The three Fondacy brothers walked in together and stood there with their hands on each other's shoulders with tears in their eyes. They looked at my husband and me and told us my dad had given them their big break. Their next words were, quote, "Your father was a very special guy. He was a man of great integrity. He's the only one we ever did business with that didn't expect something in return. He never had his hand out. He wouldn't take anything when it was offered to him. Your father was a meaning of integrity." I'll never forget it. So as you go home tonight and are laying in bed trying to go to sleep and think of all that's been discussed tonight, I hope you will think of Howard Schuffenecker, a great man of integrity. So think of this thought: when I'm laid out in my final days here on earth, will they say, gosh, he or she was a great person of integrity? Remember, If it's something you wouldn't want, don't expect it from one of us. God bless you all.
Thank you, Ms. Price. All right, next on our list is Kathy Ackerman. Kathy, when you step forward, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Kathy Ackerman, 1501 South Stadium. Since you mentioned arithmetic, let's talk some basic math. As a member of the Black Swamp Bird Observatory, I'd like to address those individuals here who haven't given it much thought or still are operating under the notion that all bird watching is just a Jane Hathaway of the world, and that none of the rest of us are interested. But there is an economic benefit to our area created by birds and birding. This is probably not new to you. You've seen it, heard it, and read it in the suburban press. But the biggest week in American birding is a 10-day festival held usually the first week or so in May, and it all takes place here, the warbler capital of the world. The festival headquarters is at our Maumee Bay Lodge and Conference Center, with additional vendors and activities at the Black Swamp Bird Observatory. And during that entire month of May and part of April preceding, it's almost impossible to get a room at the lodge. Now, I say that because this festival brings in, according to the past festival information, 90,000 birders to our area. The birders come from every U.S. state and 52 countries and 6 continents. And while these individuals are here, they spend nearly, we're talking math here, 40 million in local businesses. That's nothing to snuff at. This all happens during what we call the slowest time for tourism. Maumee Bay is thrilled to death to see these people come in. My question to you tonight is, how can Oregon do better at this? If $40 million are being spent, how can Oregon tap into that? I've been on the registration committee for the Black Swamp and biggest weekend birding for the last couple of years. This next coming May, because we've had to do the last week on TV versus in person, is going to be huge. There are going to be probably many more people coming into the area than have been in the past because they couldn't come in last year. So in order to continue to provide a world-class birding experience that attracts these birders from all over the globe, we must be good stewards of the habitat that supports these birds. This isn't just because I like to see the birds in my backyard. I do, and I don't, deny that. But this should include our wetlands, and therefore, yes, I'm against tearing down wetlands for a parking lot. But I also think when we're talking economics and we're talking numbers, is I feel that Oregon sometimes falls short. We're looking for the big answer, the big industry to come in. Maybe we need to have a number of smaller things that bring in income as well. I propose that maybe you need to talk to Kim Kaufman, who's the head of BSBO, and the possibility of what can you do in Oregon to bring some of these people in and drop some money here in Oregon. Oh, oops. I guess they can only buy something at Walmart, can't they? Well, they can go to the fast food stores and eat there. But I think we need to start looking at, if we want to have a class act here, we need to look at some more class act type of industries. And I'm talking small industries. I'm not talking, yes, I agree that a big industry would be a great idea if we could find one that fits everyone. And I understand that we'll all have pushback. You know, we're talking arithmetic. I've got a question for you. If bringing in this industry in, which is right down the street from me, takes down my property value, do I get to pay less tax?
You want to respond to that, to a lot of things you said?
Sure.
Okay. And that's when you say we want to bring things into the community other than Walmart. We have a hard time with our community attracting businesses in the retail line to come here.
And I understand that,
Because
but I
you
want
know
to ask why.
All right, and the reason is they all do numbers, traffic numbers, amount of population within a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius that we don't have. So one of the things, and as price come up here, we got banks and we got fast food things. We do, and we can get that. You know, we had people badmouth the Chase Bank that went on the corner on a vacant lot that sat there for 17 years. And we were
Unproductive for quite a many of those
and
years.
they badmouthed the Chase Bank because we got enough banks. The thing is, we had people interested in putting retail stuff right on that busiest corner that we have in the city, and it would have been a nightmare for us. So we just spent millions of dollars in our safety program to avoid the traffic there. The Chase Bank was a perfect fit for us there because it has very few cars coming in and out.
That's great.
All right, but one of the things, if we, like you said, the math, all the little industry that you talked about that we can get, we try daily. We try to get that. Very tough to do, but we continue to try.
And
We
I
spend money
continue
on
to
it.
ask you to do that.
Yeah, and we will. And even going for this proposal of this Maximus project, it got the city of Oregon recognized by site selectors that they now look at us a little more serious. So even if we get nothing out there in the eastern end of Oregon, we still got some gain from going after the Maximus project. We are taken more seriously. If we would have got a Maximus project that we could have found to fit in, and us up here, just like you, we don't want to take out the wetlands either. We would put the parking lot around the wetlands. If we could do it, we wanted to leave them wooded areas there because that helps buffer from the rest of the residents. And we were going to put more trees in and put more area to try to buffer it, if we could have fit that. 3,500 people working there, 3,500 people coming in and out. The chances of us, and the joke around here is Olive Garden. Everything's going to be an Olive Garden. And Olive Garden, to us, we don't have the criteria, the numbers. If we would have that, we would have had a thing like an Olive Garden in a heartbeat. They'd have been building it while they were building this, as well as a lot of the other classier places, mercantile shops that people could shop at would come here when they know 3,500 people are coming and going every day. And so it did do a lot for our community if we could have something like that here and get us some of the things that every one of these council people that have come, I've been here 32 years as a councilman and as mayor, and everyone has always come in. We want fine dining establishment. We want shopping places. Why don't you get it? Well, there's no magic up here to get it. We can't wave a wand and get those retail shops here. The market has to bear it. They have to know they can make a profit, and our numbers say they will not. We land a place like that, we get the numbers, and we could land some of those things. So there's a trade-off. Yeah.
And I understand that. I guess I'm,
And one of
my
the things,
question,
well, let me finish with
Okay.
the thing. One of the things is Beth Ackerman said, you still pursue that. Well, we talked to 5 of those individuals that were considering selling their property. Would we still consider giving them an option? We'll talk. We'll see if council still says, well, is there any circumstance that you would support changing the zoning for that, for the right type of business there. If they say no, we won't pursue it because we're not, people may claim that we're foolish. We're not. We're just trying to answer to the people that have told us for the 30 years I've been in, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Why do we, Ruth Price just came up here a couple weeks ago and said, you just have this stuff. We want this other stuff. Yeah, we all do, but we do not have a magic wand, but we have the innovativeness up here. And Mike Beasley and I get criticized for that. We're not forcing a battery plant there. We're saying that might be an option that you might want to consider. We are looking at the funding. You said the small industry that comes here, 150, 200 employees that bring in $1,000 a person. So $150 to $200,000 a year. When we're 5 million short, doesn't cut it. So we were looking bigger.
Multiply that times 5 or 10.
All right, 5. Oh, yeah, 5 for 10. But we
So you got to start somewhere.
we never stop starting. You said what, like we haven't been doing that.
Well,
We've been
here's
doing
another-
that.
Okay.
We've
and
been doing
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah,
So-
we've been doing it. We do it.
So
we do
I
it
claim the fact
constantly.
that I don't know all of
So
what
we
you
get
do.
critiqued. If we don't do something, we're critiqued constantly. If we do something, we're critiqued. We'll
I
take that.
understand.
The only one thing that was different about our project than others that would have done this, they would have hired a firm to go out to those people's houses and tried to get an option. And you know what? That's when I entered. I'm not CC'd on a lot of people's stuff. I said, I can't do that to people. I have to face them myself. I'll take that heat. I was told by some, you gotta be crazy. Those people want to hang you. I go, I'd rather them hang me than some paid salesman who doesn't care. Yes, I do care. I do have to face them. I'm not insensitive. I hear it all. But
Well-
I couldn't put somebody else on somebody else's board other than me.
Well, let's go back to just one thing that you said, that it's my understanding though, if I had, and I don't, but if I had a piece of property that was available and something that you would like, and you approached me and said, if something came along that, you know, you were okay with, would you be possibly sell your property?
Mhm.
I don't believe that that's how it works, though. Am I incorrect?
No, that's exactly how it works.
Once I sell it to you, I have no,
you're right.
no
Mr.
right
President,
to what
Yeah,
gets
Mr.
put
Beasley.
in there.
just as notice, the follow up on the mayor. Your point, the mayor's correct what he said, but I don't think he understood the question the way you meant it, that once you sell it,
Sell the option. We
once
were
you sell
buying
the
an
option, once you sell an option, you have given up,
You've given up.
you have made that
right.
choice, but you're making the decision
So we
to,
would have to trust that you.
or
would-
you have to decide that you're comfortable with an industrial direction or some other direction at the time you sell it, but that's your call. But that doesn't allow the project to
Because
go
you have no
forward.
idea what kind of
Correct.
industry. would
Or
go in there.
same way when the community rezones a parcel for a restaurant and say, oh boy, we're glad to have this restaurant there. The next week, the owner that could sell it and put in something else. The city or the taxpayers don't have any control that way. Just one other follow-up on one point that Mayor made. We agreed, that's why in this administration, well, this council is here, we've had 2 new hotels come in. Among the reasons we understand that help fill those hotels on Navarre is the biggest week in birding. And I've been out looking for warblers and I like finding my pileated woodpeckers and I like participating in those things. We believe that the city takes those things seriously and that this, and I'll say it, and I've said it before in this room, this mayor, this administration, this council have put in more new wetlands and riparian corridors than any city in Northwest Ohio and maybe and in the whole state. Just so people are aware, we've got 65 to 70 miles.
70 acres.
Acres of new riparian corridors and wetlands. Now, we like that. We think it's good for Oregon. We think it helps clean our air. We think it helps make us more attractive. We think it helps attract birds. And we like that. So
Of course, we have Susan here that could vouch for that.
yeah.
Yes.
So we take it seriously and that's what we do. That said, we will still, as an administration and the foundation, we're not going to hide behind the foundation that they're doing their job. They float ideas and ultimately we'll have a process to say yes or no. The same way the community said no to Home Depot and Kohl's. And the same way the community said no to the drugstore because people chose not to buy, and maybe the zoning.
And
So
I
that's
know
the
it must be
process.
very frustrating to have people come in and you think that you've got something going and that you
But
have
that's
a bunch
okay.
of people come in and say, no, we don't want it.
But that's part of the process. That's okay.
And we knew it was a long shot to get in the first place.
It's all right.
But
But we took a
I
shot.
gotta admit, I am not crazy about the idea. I am not crazy about what it would do to my, my property value
I think it raised
as
quite a bit.
well, as well as I, you know,
You think it's funny, but it would definitely raise the price.
commercial maybe.
Yeah, and those are things that are unknowable. Those are fair questions. But
Yes.
ultimately, as a city, we believe it's our job to ask the questions, and that's the process that took place.
The other thing that I might add is that, you know, I know that when you go, I'm not sure who goes and represents our Oregon when you're trying to sell ourselves to, say, a Kohl's or whatever organization. But maybe we need to look long and hard on that person that we're sending to sell Oregon. I know there's numbers there, but maybe we need to.
We tried calls. We've been on calls.
Maybe we need to find someone that can really sell Oregon, be very charismatic about Oregon, and just go
Just-
out there and
we-
sell ourselves.
Remember, we do that, and I think, of course, some of the people will critique us and say we don't do a good enough job. But they look at numbers of traffic count and they look at numbers of population in the area and the flow of
rooftops.
traffic. So they count all those, and the best salesman in the world could be there. And if you don't have the numbers, you're not selling. The worst salesman could be there and you got all the numbers. They don't care. They'll move there.
All right.
Yeah, no, so
Just one note on, is because that's a good point, on among the reasons I've been very successful at landing things like that over a 40-year career. I have other times when I haven't. The math drives the outcomes. So that in looking at Oregon, among the reasons this council, this administration, and the community are looking to take action on a town center, and we're going to go, well, phase one thing we're talking about the council tonight is that
And by the way, is that on our website?
this will be posted on our website tomorrow.
Okay, 'cause I looked
We're
at-
about to file
I saw the
we're about,
apartment complex.
we're about to file a plat. Among the things that the site selectors want for things like retail is they want things like apartment complexes. That's very
Because
important.
that's going to get your numbers up.
It gets numbers up. They like it. If you look at, they like rooftops and apartment complexes, they like, because those restaurateurs then feel comfortable coming in. They want some density that Oregon hasn't traditionally had. We don't have
Well,
a
I
lot.
appreciate the fact that the apartments that you at least have on the website say that they're trying to be upscale.
Well, that's the group that we're working with, the same group that is they're building one in Waterville as we speak. They're building one in Sylvania behind the Kroger as we speak. They're welcome in those communities and they're doing well. Among the reasons that Oregon has a lot of older apartment stock is we haven't allowed any new apartment stock. And then we're condemned to have only the oldest apartment stock in the region if we don't have new come in. So that's, as we are very actively engaged with retailers right now who are very interested in coming here. All the retailers took about a year and a half off with COVID. They're all restaurateurs.
Well, yes,
All
we're
the-
probably behind the 8 ball as far as trying to
Sure.
bring a big box.
But
store
all
at
the
this point.
all the retailers are taking a little bit kind of on a slow base, but they're very interested in coming here. We've got restaurants interested in coming in here. The thing they want to see first is the thing we're going to roll out is Mark Rega is going to build 37 single-family homes in the town center space, and then we're going to have 208 apartments next to that. Those are things that drive outcomes for them, and they want to see that, gives them the confidence that they do the car count, look at the car count, look at the hospital next to the site, and they look at the residential. Those are the kind of the three pieces they go to it. But the hotels that came in across the street are things that came from our partnering and talking with the hotel people. And one of the things we talked about was the biggest week in birding, some of those things. That was part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I still think we could probably do something
So we're
in
trying.
that, so,
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
Yes, Mrs. Ackerman.
yes.
Yeah, I went to that. When the Eagles Nest was still open, Diane, who ran it, she had a big map and she put dots on each state from where
Right, she did.
was-
And she
it was
also gave-
Unbelievable.
Yep, she gave coupons and
Yeah,
whatever.
when he
for
had
those.
that all mapped out. There's all the burger stuff is her place and she would put it on the map. I thought
Yep.
that was good. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have one last person that was signed up. Susan, would you like to come forward? And, yep, and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Dr. Susan Orris. I live in 7970 Brown Road. And I have been listening to the discussion throughout the multiple weeks. As a bird veterinarian, I'm one of the top 10 in the United States. This is a very unique area, and you all understand that. I think so, that we have an obligation to that from a migratory pathway. You also have an important aspect with these wetlands that you created, I've created, the USDA has gone out in this area that have been building wetlands in the Oregon area and the Jerusalem Township area. Personally, I think that those have been very important for the birds. And I was very concerned, Mr. Beasley, so I brought these to you because I was very shocked and appalled when you were positive about wind turbines. Because
We
I
really
look at
weren't.
them, I look at them.
Listen, chose not to have them here.
I know, but you talked
Well,
about them. So I'm gonna.
Okay, I'd love to see it.
Because really there is data
Okay.
on how bad they are. They're like hatchets. They're rotating hatchets for birds. So I just want you
Okay,
to
I
be aware
appreciate
of
that.
it.
I want to let you know, the point I was trying to make is that whatever choice of energy you make, there's downsides. So I'm aware of every building, every subdivision we build. I've been involved in working and that on projects like this in the past, kills birds because we fly into picture windows. I mean, it's real. Those numbers are real. I'm very familiar with it.
No, I gave you some.
And the point I'm ultimately trying to make is that every choice we make has downsides in a lot of different directions. And
So
some of-
I would hope you not to make the choice to have an industrial zone where
Okay.
you are proposing it.
Okay.
I would suggest that you keep it in the area that you had on your original map. I would also remind you that birds not only fly north, they fly south. And I think that it would behoove all of you from a council to think about a strategic plan because you have your name on the map in the entire world. I had a visiting veterinary colleague from England. Oh, I must go out to see the birding. And it wasn't the right time of year, but we had birding anyway. And so they don't just, there are so many things. Instead of a pass-through destination, we should make Oregon a come to stay for a weekend or for a week destination, not just in the biggest week, because the warblers fly back in the fall. So do all the other things. The eagles, the different falcons, all those things fly back. And I would suggest that you think about a strategic planning group that could work on that and build on that emphasis for tourism so that you can have these other stores and you can have these boutiques and you can have other things. And that's all I wanted to say. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mr. Zale.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So let's say that we did put in an industrial complex in the property that we're disputing. Let's say it was something on the scale of like one of the Amazon buildings that we've seen that might be like a story and a half high, but larger. I mean, in space or something of that nature, like First Solar. So if you were to put that in that area, how does that affect the bird fly?
Okay, there's a couple factors there. One is light and one is the drainage from that area. There's also the fact that there's a wetland that's already there and a very mature forest. So that would.
I guess part of what I meant to say.
We'd leave
is
that.
We don't interfere with that. It's
Okay.
just the building.
Okay. I think it's going to have some long-term significance. It would be better if you're going to have an Amazon building to move it where your other industry is from a light perspective. I drive by the windmill over there at the school and I go, oh, every day. But it has problems from a light, movement of a lot of truck traffic and noise, and it's gonna be a disruptor, just from a bird perspective. Now, in terms of movement of water over, because there's that big swale, and that swale goes over to the area by Maumee Bay State Park. You'd have to be very careful with that as well.
Thank you.
One of them we
Mr.
developed.
Thank you.
I gotta ask the doctor something. if I could. You know, this might be a stupid question, but. like-
We always say when we're teaching, there's never a stupid
Oh,
question.
okay, good. But no, like you know, sometimes. when you
I have a
stop
question.
on certain kind of fish,
Can you tell them?
Like, we had some, like a rare type of bird that was really interesting and attractive. Could we, like, is there ever a way that maybe
Just
we
had
bring a few of them in and get, if we hardly have any, or we don't have any, but they know we have a proper habitat for them? Can we bring some in and let them proliferate? Like how you do, you know, like fish in a pond, let's say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
If you're talking a truly wild species, most of the species here are migratory and so they're not going to stay around. But as you increase your wetland habitat in this area, you will keep a lot more species here. It becomes much more interesting for the bird watchers in this area, just like the Howard Farm facility, now that that's big, and Dr. Carstenson's property down the road from there. As you increase that, there are more and more birds that are staying, which is what's happening with all the wetlands that we're getting in this area. So we don't have just, oh, they flew through and they're gone now. We have a lot of bluebirds nesting here. We have a lot of orioles of different species. So people are coming here over the summer and birding. So the birding starts essentially in about March with all the ducks, and it goes through late fall because of the raptors that come through and kettle in the fall. So by having, my proposal is to continue keeping that area kind of more of a wetland agricultural area, and thinking about essentially like they're doing in a lot of other countries, like ecotourism and certain types of farming, to kind of bring that type of tourism aspect to this area.
Thank you.
Only because they all the birds come here, so let's take advantage of that.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Ms. Wertz. Excuse me.
Susan, we have another question
I have a
from
question.
Councilwoman Paul.
And I'm really glad that you're here because I read your article in Metro Press and I need a little clarification. In this, you wrote wetlands and areas like riparian buffers.
Riparian buffers.
Riparian
Mhm.
buffers act to slow this water down and filter it before it enters the lake. Are you suggesting that the wetlands are the holding pond for runoff before it goes to the lake?
Typically, in many cases, it almost acts as a sponge.
Okay,
So it slows things down. So I have a riparian buffer that I work through with the USDA. So in that buffer, it's up against Cedar Creek, and we planted 3,700 trees in 10 acres. So as Cedar Creek rises, when we get a lot of rain, what that does is there's all these trees that are growing up. They're only about 3 or 4 years old, but I love all of them. And so it starts to slow the water. And when it slows the water, it drops out a lot of the nutrients, such as the big one with the H2 Ohio project is phosphorus.
Mhm.
So the wetlands act as a sponge to kind of slow that water down. So as the USDA is very interested in either farmland that's up against a creek or in swale areas that is going out to the lake, that's where they're trying to get a number of these wetlands either created or kept. In most cases, we have to recreate them because this was the black swamp and we got rid of it. So originally, there was a lot of trees here. And it was mostly treed, and then the original farmers came in, they cut the trees down and they started planting. That's why the soil is so good, particularly that area around Brown Road between Wheeling and Lauendorf. There's a the soil type there. We should have never put houses on that thing. I mean, that's just the best ground in the entire world. But that land, those wetlands will help slow that water down, because the big problem for the endangered part of this Lake Erie Basin, the Western Lake Erie Basin, is mostly, not completely, but a lot of it has to do with phosphorus runoff. And that's why the state of Ohio is involved with the H2 Ohio program with the USDA to help create wetlands and riparian buffers.
So if they act as a sponge, what does the runoff of phosphorus and pesticides do as it sits in those wetlands to the aquatic amphibious life that lives there?
No, over time, it depends. If there's a lot of toxins, yes, then you will kill things.
Now, I was looking at the map of where these wetlands are. And there's, correct me if I'm wrong, 13 to 14 acres total that we're talking about of these wetlands. And how much
You mean in the proposed area?
in the proposed area, how much farmland is surrounding these wetlands?
A couple hundred acres, roughly.
Okay, so a couple hundred acres, are any of those acres
About
tiled?
360.
Okay, are any of those are they tiled? And if they're tiled, what is that do?
Honestly, I don't know about that. I can tell you that in my
Okay.
wetland, what we did is we removed all the tile. So what happened, what I would prefer personally is that more of that became more wetland oriented. But farmers have the right to farm their land.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
But if you,
but
we're
what
looking at preserving wetlands, is that correct? We're looking at preserving wetlands, and I'd like to finish my questions without interruption, please, without interruption. The wetlands we're preserving, you have to have the runoff be helpful to preserve those wetlands, is that correct?
Not necessarily. So a wetland, for example, one of my pieces of property that the USDA is contracted for, it just stays right there, because a lot of the soil base here in this area, which includes Oregon, is that it doesn't perk well. The water doesn't move well, so the reason that it runs off typically is if it's tiled. As you reduce the tiling, then it percolates through the soil and it helps drain. Essentially, if the farmer's using phosphorus, it's going to perk through the soil and get caught up, and then the plants will use it as a source to make carbon.
Okay, so no tile is better than tile when it
If
comes
you're
around?
a wetland person, that'd be
If you're a
correct.
wetland person, okay. So with protecting the wetland, is it best to do organic farming around there? Or, I mean, is it organically farmed around there?
It depends. Organic is just a way of farming. There's always going to be some form of nitrogen that when you have a single system farming, which is I have a field of corn, or I have a field of soybeans, that's going to need some form of nitrogen.
Okay.
And it could be an organic form, or it could be anhydrous ammonia form. But as you allow the water, when it hits the ground, when it rains, and it slides off and goes not through a tile, but into a big drainage area, that's when you're going to get your biggest problem with algae bloom.
Okay, so I live on the eastern end of Oregon, and there's not a summer that doesn't go by that I don't hear crop dusting going on. What about crop dusting around a wetland?
I have no idea. I've seen this guy, but I have no idea what he's applying, and I don't know if he's doing nitrogen or if he's doing something else.
Because I would like to know if that helps the wetland or does it degrade it?
It
I mean,
wouldn't
is there a
it
certain
probably-
category that those wetlands are in? Are they in, were they ever assessed? Are they healthy? Well, I mean, what condition? They are
So,
being delineated now?
okay, so like my wetland gets inspected yearly by the
Okay.
USDA.
Okay. And it's on your private property, so who's
Yes.
responsible when wetland
Me.
is on? Okay, you're responsible
For mine,
for your, okay, so the landowner is responsible
correct.
for keeping up, and they have to
And
follow a
then
set
you
of
follow
standards.
a huge pile of rules.
Okay, all right.
Yep,
Thank you for that.
yep, yeah, you're
clarification.
welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
I just, that she brought up the subject of tiles and stuff.
Feel free.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
My husband was conservation steward of the year for Lucas County a couple years ago because he, and Kevin Rudy has also been, he's one of the other parcels that's involved. And it's good that you asked that because like what Brian Cusion did was he cut all his tiles off next to his forested wetland and created a huge conservation area with property he could have kept farming, but he and his father, his family believe in how important it is. So what Kevin did, what Brian did on the edge of his farmed property, and what we did was to put, we put structures in that we shut them and it closes off all the tile. So when there are periods of heavy rain or and we don't do any winter fertilizing, and we believe in the 4 Rs. And a lot of farmers I know are all adhering to that to reduce the amount and like saying doing foliar feeding so that the plant takes in the nutrients and you're not dumping anything on the ground to end up in the waterways. And anyway, so these water structures are designed to protect any runoff from those tiles. So we close them if there's a rain, and that way, so to slow that. And we also, my husband did, he didn't have to, but he did the max and filter strips along Aubrey Ditch, on both sides of Aubrey Ditch, behind our place from Route 2. Well, actually, north of Route 2, all the way up to Jerry Peach's property, we did the max, which costs us money every year and lost revenue from crops. But we understood the importance of filtering those nutrients before they hit Aubrey Ditch, which leads out to Lake Erie. So there's very conscientious farmers working on making as minimal impact. And honestly, if you ever want to come out, I will take you into, we have a forested wetland on our property. And I can take you in there and show you the impact, of the ash tree loss and all that, the Asian longhorn beetle loss, of all of the invasive species that are impacting those. They're under attack by things all the time. But yeah, if any of you ever want a tour out there,
I would love a tour
Yeah,
out
I
there.
would.
But what
Well,
I
just
but
saying.
what I want to understanding. So when you get the delineation from the Corps of Army and the
No, this is from someone who
So
works, he does work for the feds, but
so you don't get it from the Army Corps of Engineers.
oh no, they're going to come do one for the property up on Corduroy too, the Cone Woods, because that, I don't know, I haven't seen any sort of environmental impact or any assessment on that, because that's going to have to be, you guys are going to have to create more wetlands somewhere to make up for the impact on putting roads
So-
around. You're wrapping roads around 2 sides. So, well, we'll let the delineation decide that. Okay.
Will you share that delineation with us?
You can't put a road right next to a woods and say, I'm not touching it, and you're not gonna impact it. It's
Was
not like
the-
a magic
Disagree
line
with you,
around
but
the
that's fine,
woods.
that's fine.
But
We've
was-
done a lot of mitigation, and
I know.
Mr. President, if I could, I mean.
Yeah, Mr. Roman?
Well, it bothers me in a lot of ways that we talk as if we don't know what a wetland is and that we haven't done it. We've done a lot of wetland mitigation, and I know enough to stay away from a wooded wetland, I can tell you that. And I would do everything in my power to stay away from
I appreciate that.
it. But we created wetlands.
Yeah, the 2-stage ditch that you call a wetland that's behind the water plant over there, I mean, you can't put it in and ignore it. So like in times of drought and all that, it has to be maintained.
Overwide channel is definitely the way. And just like the doctor had mentioned, anything you can do to slow drainage down, get sediment to drop out, you're gonna get nutrients attached to that sediment. And the hope is that plants uptake it. Even trust me, when it came to lack of sewers in Eastern Oregon, E. coli was a problem. And so having shallow waters and having the sun bake the E. coli was a good thing. I mean, we create wetlands here. I mean, North Pearson, that was Ohio wetland, by the way. That was a
Right,
mitigation
right.
bank. And
The
the first thing
Nature
they did was they
Conservancy,
crushed the
yeah.
tiles, the very first thing they did. But we do a lot for wetlands, and it's almost as if you guys talk as if we do nothing.
Mr.
It
President?
bothers me. It bothers me.
No, I'm sorry. Well,
Mr. President?
it bothers me that you would want to
Yes.
impact the few forested
Well,
ones that we
my-
have. Now, maybe that's not
My
your
advice is to
opinion.
avoid it as much as
Right.
possible.
Maybe that's not your opinion. And honestly, we could all just go be happy campers, literally. If you guys did what you did on the north side of Star Avenue and you created a wetland, a conservancy over there in our area that would benefit the bird watching community and everything. I
And-
mean,
All of our
yeah,
mitigation is-
I think we could all be on the same team with that.
Mr. Roman and Beth, Ms.
Okay.
Pollock does have another question.
The city of Oregon has two very beautiful 5-year videos of the last 5 years of these projects and where they've come from their beginning. And it's a very good project that the city of
takes
Oregon
time,
should
yeah.
be very proud of.
No, I have
And I
no-
think these
I'm not knocking
videos
it.
should be posted on the Facebook page, on the website. They should be posted everywhere because there is a lot of work that has been done with our wetlands and our waterways in Oregon that is phenomenal. And it's really easy to see when you see these videos that Oregon is very proactive.
Well, I would appreciate that. I mean,
Well-
the problem is though, that when you come up with something like an industrial park, it does negate that to some extent. You can't just say, we can easily mitigate. The term easily mitigated just triggers me bad. Because it's like, you can't take a forested wetland
Mr.
and easily
Beasley?
mitigate.
Mr. President, just a note, the reason that we think about mitigation, we think that we assumed all along that the forest would stay there and that we could, if there was some minor impact, that we could mitigate it in some other area. We assume going in, we assemble enough land that we could leave the forest. We like them as buffers.
You can't
the
get
city-
far enough away with the
Sure,
industrial.
we understand those challenges. I mean, the city has planted thousands of trees over the last few years, and those are long-term projects, and it's
Yeah.
not magic. We understand it. But we have to look long on those things. We'll continue to do more.
I was told 660 feet from an eagle's nest. I don't know, you guys were told like 100 feet. So I guess we would end up in that tug of war over that kind of thing because
Well, when you-
660 feet would place you west out of one parcel and south out of another parcel.
Well, when you quoted the report my daughter did, I went back and asked
Mhm.
her about it, and she said they've been taken off the endangered list and they are under
Yeah,
protected.
but we don't want them back there.
But but that distance has changed from when they were endangered. So it is shorter, it
I
isn't.
guess the
as
Fish and
far out.
Wildlife don't know what they're talking about, but
That's what I
the
was
point is,
told.
we don't want to take him back to that. We have that success, we want to build on that success and not go backwards by bookending Oregon with industrial. That's the bottom line of it. But yeah, I think we could all work together. We can do the bird thing, like and promote that through, like she said, it's a lot more than just that week. I mean, I know a lot of folks would be all about that, and it'd be a quality of life for citizens that you guys wouldn't have to like hide from us all the
Well, there's a
time.
lot. I mean, I think we should all work together. We're a community. And
Well,
you don't
we
know
can
what's
only
going to
work
happen
with
in
what we
50.
know is happening.
You don't know what's going to happen in 50 years. You don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. But if we work together as a community instead of tearing each other down, then maybe we could come up with better solutions.
So that's why transparency and honesty is like at the core of
We agree.
everything we're doing, right? So,
Yeah,
all right, moving forward, everything's straight across the board, right? Just
We're good.
give it to us, good, bad, ugly.
It is on this side.
Okay,
Thank you, Beth.
thank you.
Thank you. And Ben, you wanted to follow up? Yes, please.
I have a follow-up for Melissa, the law director. Michael Beasley stated that the 3.8 million was reduced to 2 million for the COVID relief. The mayor, Mr. Safarian, by the way, I missed the boom fist this year.
Well, we didn't have it yet. We didn't have it yet.
I know you didn't have, oh, you're still gonna have it?
Well, trying to
Looking
put
at it.
together some,
That would be great. That's a great thing. You always got a great band. Really appreciated that.
it'd be a little tough digging at the
I know.
last minute.
I know you said 21 million to operate the budget, so you need that COVID money
Yeah.
for the budget.
Right.
But my question for the law director is, other cities that got the COVID money gave it to the frontline essential workers. Is it legal to take that money and give it to the city instead of what it was intended for?
Ms. Purpura.
Can you clarify that for me? Because I don't think I understand your question.
Is it legal for you guys to take the COVID-19 relief money from the federal government that was meant for the Oregon City citizens who need it for some COVID-related expense and use it to balance your budget?
So the federal government gives guidelines, which is outlined in one of the exhibits that's attached to our ordinance today for establishing a certain fund, and gives the guidelines as far as what the city can utilize that money for. One of the things that the city can utilize that money for that has been set forth by the federal government is loss of revenue. So that is one of the things that the federal government has permitted cities to do.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because a lot of the Oregon residents really could use that, and it has been done in other cities where they've used that money.
Nope, nobody has the money yet, so they haven't done it yet.
Oh, yeah, I've been reading.
Okay, yeah.
But in the end, all the people in the city are gonna see the benefit of it, because if we don't put it into our city services, we have to do something. We have to pay for them somehow. And right now we're
Okay.
short.
Just a
Alright.
question.
Fair question. Fair question.
Because, I know the state, the federal, and the city were all doing different things with the COVID stuff. So.
As Mr. Beasley had stated, we will contact you. There are some programs through the state or the county that might be able to assist you, and I'll make sure that we reach out and share
No, it's
those.
not only me. There's a lot of people in Oregon. If you get on Facebook and look at the Oregon Community Neighbors website, that's one of them. There's a lot of people out there that need help. I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, but if I have a emergency, I ain't gonna be able to handle it,
But we'll provide some of those services that may be available to you or other residents that might be able to assist.
Like, if the car goes out, then I have no job. That's why I'm saying, right now, knock on wood, 160,000, that's still going strong.
Mine's
But-
210.
But
211.
that's a lot of miles. 60,000, all because of COVID. And that is all driving in the city of Oregon here. Just hospitals, nursing homes, houses, you name it. So.
Ben, thank you so much. Thank you. That concludes the audience participation portion. Let's take just a couple minutes. Everybody can use the restroom if they need to. And then we'll come back here at 9 o'clock. We'll resume.
Okay, I'm gonna mute the.
My mic's on.
Where'd he go?
Okay, we're good.
See, you know, now they're just a trans.
Okay, we are going to
Is that
get
an
started
option?
with the
You wanted us to-
items for
Nobody
consideration
told
and
me.
passage this evening. We did not have a committee of the whole meeting last week, therefore we need to add items 75 through 83 of 2021 to this evening's agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr.
so moved.
So moved by Ms. Powell, second by Mr. Seaman. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, we're going to move forward with item number 75 of 2021. Item number 75 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Saparian and Finance Director, Ms. Darlene Huntermark.
Beasley wants to say something.
And we're going to talk to Mr. Beasley first.
And I promise not to be chewing my pretzel while I talk about it. This is dinner tonight. Just as a note, as we're going to Darlene to talk about our finance ordinances, we did receive, and I don't know whether it got distributed yet or it's about to be distributed. We did get our Keith Faber, the state auditor, has just completed our audit, and we once again came out with a totally clean bill of health, no findings, no question costs. They were like the way we handled our funds. We got a special commendation for the way we handled our public information. So I felt, just wanted to pass it to the council and thank Darlene and her team leading through and all the departments. We're careful that we might have dispute and debate about how we spend our dollars. We account for it cleanly, at least as we go through it. So, and thank you as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Darlene?
Thank you, Mr. President. We are taking a look at our mid-year appropriations at this time, and so we're just requesting a few adjustments. And I had sent a memo out on July 6th that gave a description of each of the categories, but if anybody had any specific questions on these, I could try to answer them.
Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 75 of 2021? Here, no questions. I will sign item number 75 with ordinance number 75 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing and directing the finance director to make supplemental appropriations and interfund and intrafund transfers on an as-needed basis for fiscal year 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
Move for passage of ordinance 75 of 2021 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dabish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 75 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Dabish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 75 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item number 76 of 2021. Item number 76 is also being presented by Mayor Michael J. Saparian and Finance Director, Ms. Darlene Huntermark. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. We kind of discussed this in the audience participation. This is the fund that needs to be established so we can accept those funds, Mr. Beasley. And we did touch on how we could spend it and what we spend it for, but he wants to make a couple comments also.
Yeah,
Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President, just as a note, again, and we did talk about it, but I just thought we should make a record with this. Initially, the federal government had provided us with an allocation that we thought was going to be just about $4 million. The state legislature, in its wisdom, cut that in half. Those dollars are going to be shared with the townships, and so we're going to end up with about $2 million. About $1 million a year. We have received nothing yet. As the members know, I think our income tax revenue decline from 19 to 20 was about 4.7. Again, we're affected by a couple of particular industries that had a challenging year. We are hopeful that things will bounce back. We're seeing demand for gasoline go back up. Jet fuel is coming in a little under historical demand, but gasoline and diesel are coming in stronger. And we're hoping that for some stability in one of our largest sectors. The hospitals, which is one of our larger sectors, had a challenging year that was busy, but not necessarily profitable. They didn't have all their employees there in the same way. It was just kind of an unusual year with different surgeries canceled and that sort of thing. So the dollars, this will create a fund. That's the only purpose of this ordinance in particular. But ultimately, it will create a fund so that when we spend those dollars, they have to be spent from this category to assure appropriate transparency. But our general intention is to use this to make up for the dollars that didn't come in last year. and to a certain extent this year as we move through it, making sure we can continue to keep our reserves adequate and spend our dollars and meet our service needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 76 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll assign item number 76 with ordinance number 76 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Establishing a new special revenue fund, Fund 259, Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and authorizing the acceptance of federal funding from the American Rescue Plan Act and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Seaman.
I'll move for passage of item number 76 of 2021 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 76 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves? Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 76 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item number 77 of 2021. Again, item number 77 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Finance Director, Ms. Darlene Huntermark. We're going to go directly to Ms. Huntermark.
Thank you, Mr. President. The city was approached by property owners residing on Wheeling and Ansonia Streets, requesting to vacate the alleyway located between Wheeling and Ansonia. 100% of the property owners have signed the petition, and a public utility easement would be retained over the 16-foot alleyway.
Thank you. Councilors, are there any questions for the administration on item number 77 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll assign item number 77 with ordinance number 77 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Declaring the intent of the city of Oregon to refer the petition from the abutting property owners to vacate the 189.9 feet of a 16-foot alleyway north of Carl Street and south of the southern right-of-way line of Dearborn Avenue between Ansonia Street and Wheeling Street in the city of Oregon to the Plan Commission for their recommendation and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council. Yes, Mr. Reeves.
It is.
Yes, it should be a resolution. I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves. Thank you for correcting me. Are you making a motion?
I will make a motion to move to pass resolution
77.
77 of 2021 and emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call for passage of resolution number 77 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Thank you, council. Please note that resolution 77 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 78 of 2021. Again, item number 78 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Finance Director, Ms. Darlene Huntermark. Ms. Huntermark?
Thank you, Mr. President. The city has worked well with Tyler Technologies since 2003, and they continue to be innovative and work closely with us to keep our systems up to date. This ordinance would approve continued financial support services, which renews annually.
Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 78 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 78 with ordinance number 78 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into an agreement with Tyler Technologies Incorporated, 1 Tyler Drive, Yarmouth, Maine, to provide financial software support consisting of system administration, system management, and system monitoring activities.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Seaman.
I move for passage of item number 78 of 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 78 of 2021?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 78 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 79 this evening. Item number 79 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and our police chief, Mr. Brandon Beegan. Mayor?
We can go right to Brandon.
Chief Beegan.
He sat through all this. He gets to have something to do.
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. President. We are coming forward today, we are looking to purchase another 2020 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor all-wheel drive vehicle at a cost of $35,592. This is from Bauman Ford in Oregon. They do have a vehicle on the lot. Earlier in the year, we purchased 3 Ford Explorers that were waiting to get fully outfitted to hit the road. We did have a officer who was involved in a crash that totaled out one of our vehicles. I believe it was a 2016 Ford Explorer. We are going to receive somewhere between $16,000 and $18,000 from the insurance company. We're still waiting to see exactly what they're going to cover with that. In addition to this, even though it's not on the ordinance, there will be a changeover cost of $14,705 to have the vehicle outfitted with the equipment to and the striping on the vehicle to make it a Oregon police vehicle. We were under on our previous budget for vehicles and changeover. Originally, we were budgeted for $162,000. We spent about $140,912 of that, with the remaining $21,087 balance. So we would have to find some place in the budget to pull some of that money from, but we've been very mindful with that, and we're content that we'd be able to find that in the budget.
Thank you, Chief Began. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 79 of 2021? Chief Began, Mr. Beasley, Mayor, I would have a question to the point that Chief Began was speaking. Would we look at just a general revenue to pull money, or is that coming out of police budget for that extra money?
Mr. President, we're taking it out of the water fund. No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, I said wastewater.
I'm just
You missed me.
teasing
I
Paul
said
Roman
wastewater.
since I always argue with him about his funds. That for now, it will come out of the police budget. We think we have a space there on supplies that we can use. Obviously, in a post-COVID world, we've got certain things like the cars that we thought we were buying this year. They might not show up. We'll see if it turns out at the end of the year, if we end up having to move, depending on what comes in. We have other things. Some things we're not going to be able to acquire this year. Other things are costing more. So that's why the budget is a moving target as we come out of COVID. If at the end of the year, the police budget ends up short, we'll shift over from 101. So we thought it was a great opportunity to get a vehicle when there's one on the lot. We also wish we were getting the vehicles we thought we were buying in time.
And is that part of the global chip shortage that they
Yes.
can't? Okay, thank you. Council, is there any further questions on item number 79? Hearing no further questions, I'll sign item number 79 with ordinance number 79 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to issue a purchase order to Bauman Ford Oregon LLC, 2811 Navarre Avenue, Oregon, Ohio, for the purchase of one 2020 Ford Interceptor utility vehicle to be used in the Oregon Police Division and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council. Yes, Mr. Zale.
I move for passage of ordinance 79, 2021 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Zale.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 79 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Zale?
Yes.
Mrs. Pauloff?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves? Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 79 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item number 80. Item number 80 again is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and our police chief, Mr. Brandon Began. Mayor. Chief Began.
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. President. This is a grant through the Ohio Attorney General's office. It's called the Drug Use Prevention Grant. This is to teach, commonly referred to the DARE program or similar type programs to teach kids to prevent drug use. They will allow for the funds of up to 50% of the time for the officer, who's Officer Sarah Shaw, for counseling time, classroom prep, and classroom hours. The grant covers 50% of that, which is $5,405.40. And that's for a total of 315 hours that were used towards teaching and preparing to teach the DARE program this year.
Thank you, Chief Began. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 80 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll assign item number 80 with ordinance number 80 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans?
Supporting the Ohio Attorney General's 2021-2022 Drug Use Prevention Grant Program application by the Oregon Police Division and authorizing and directing the mayor, finance director, and the chief of police to sign the grants award acceptance pursuant to requirements of the Ohio Attorney General's Drug Use Prevention Program grant.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council? Yes, Mr. Zale.
I move for passage of ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Zale.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pollock. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 80 of 2021?
Mr. Zale?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzek?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 80 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 81 this evening. Item number 81 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman. We're going to go directly to Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed to purchase bulk de-icing salt for our roads from Cargill. If you recall, Cargill, we had a purchase agreement with their company last year, both the city of Toledo and Oregon. We bid our salt bid together because we have salt delivered by boat. And with a 3% increase, $40.38 is what their offer is for this year. That's still $10 per ton cheaper than any other bids that ODOT has received for our area. So it is really just issuing a purchase order, and that's it. Answer any questions?
Again, every year, I think somebody on council asks you this question: how much do we have left from last year?
We probably have, I believe, close to 5,000 or so.
Okay.
And, but still, this is a really good price.
Yeah, I'm not
And this is for
disputing that.
5,000, yeah.
Yep.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Beasley.
our notion was if the price is unusually high, we could float. But at this price, we wanted, now's the time to buy. I mean, we've had some rough quotes in other years. And again, Oregon is fortunate with our the process, the way we do it. Everyone wishes they had our price to get this. They'd rather get it from us, but that's not practical.
Surprisingly, the prices did go up. It was kind of odd because I didn't think it was a bad one. So, what it's worth.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 81? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 81 with ordinance number 81 of 2021. And ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor, director of public service, and finance director to issue a purchase order to Cargill Incorporated 24950 Country Club Boulevard, Suite 450 North Olmsted, Ohio, for the purchase and delivery of bulk de-icing salt and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Dabish.
I move for passage of ordinance number 81 of 2021 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Dabish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pollock. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 81 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Dabish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzek?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 81 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 82. Item number 82 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman. Mr. Roman.
And Mr. President, I'd just like to present 83 as well with that. Both are encroachment agreements. One is the 82 is for a retaining wall, 83 is for an above ground pool. Neither are a detriment for drainage or public safety. And, they are a structure though. So if the public ever has to deal with moving these items, it shouldn't fall on the public's cost to move them. It would fall on the property owner's cost. And that's what the encroachment agreement protects the public on, but still allows it to go in. So but that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 82 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 82 with ordinance number 82 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor, director of public service, and finance director to enter into an encroachment agreement with Christine L. Smith, 5504 Eagles Landing Drive, for the placement of a retaining wall within a public drainage easement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dabish.
I move for passage of ordinance number 82 of 2021 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Dabish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pollock. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 82 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Polliff?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Thank you. Please note that ordinance number 82 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to the final item this evening, item number 83 of 2021. Item number 83 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman. We're going to go directly to Mr. Roman on item, nope, you've already.
I did
You want-
present it.
You want to say anything else or are you good?
No, it's almost exact like the other one, except this is an oak tree run and it's an above ground pole. Again, no detriment to drainage or public safety, but the encroachment agreement covers the city. In case we ever had to touch it, it would be at the property owner's cost.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 83? Here are no questions. I'll sign item number 83 with ordinance number 83 of 2021. And ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor, director of public service, and finance director to enter into an encroachment agreement with Anthony V. Manera and Barbara J. Hunter, 3904 Oakfield Drive, Oregon, Ohio, for the placement of a pool within a public drainage easement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passes of ordinance number 83 of 2021 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Polliff. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 83 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Polliff?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 83 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. That ends the items for consideration and passage this evening, and we will move to the mayor's report. Mayor.
We talked enough today. No report.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President, you wish I wouldn't have a report. I just did want to have a note to share. We, on the council dais, and we'll, after we get your thoughts on it, we'll end up posting it on the website. Phase 1 of our town center is going to begin construction any minute now, almost.
No.
I mean, the next few weeks. I mean, as we've gone out to, the bids have been awarded and Mosier Construction has the bids on it and they're doing that work. We have Rodney and Paul Shop is getting ready to file the plat that would be representative of this. We had to wrap up waiting for the final survey. And so we just want to let you know, this is generally what it will look like for the south end of it coming in and with the street names. If you, I want to let you know that, Mark would do the single family residential side and we would, after we get our plat file, we'll announce that and we'll roll out the apartment side after that. And we have strong interest in the north side. They're waiting to see the road get started and those components of it, we're excited moving forward. So I just want to let folks know that that's the street names that Rodney will file unless members have an objection. Let us know your thoughts on it. That's kind of what kind of came out of the internal discussions they had.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Ms. Purpura?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Mr. Roman?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves? Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Zale?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zale.
I was just like, I meant to do this a week ago or so. We have, Summer is the one that's running our Facebook page, is she not?
Yes, she does.
Could we have her post the city agenda every Friday when we get it? I mean, that seems to be, I know it's on our website.
But also on the Facebook page would be, you
But I
think it'd be a good
that
plus.
gives us
Okay,
probably
we can do that.
more,
Tina,
you
we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zale. Mr. Seaman?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Mr. Davish?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Polliff?
No report, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Polliff. Mr. Horniak?
Thank you, Mr. President. No official report. However, I would like to call a committee meeting of the Economic Development Committee for Oregon City Council. Talking with the members of that particular committee and those involved, it looks like that meeting date will be July 22nd, which I believe is Thursday. We'll commence at 4 p.m. with a target of wrapping up by 6 p.m. So again, we'll start it at that point in time. Basic use will be to get an update from Oregon Economic Development Foundation have some discussion of that, get some update into the town center, and then I'd like us to review and discuss current land zoning and appropriations of what's out there today, and discuss some opportunities of what else might be available to us as a community. So again, Thursday, July 22nd, 4 PM, we'll do it right here in council chambers. I would anticipate a crowd. I would also ask that that gets posted up to the Facebook site, because again, I think that would be the most appropriate manner. I'm disappointed everybody left before we kinda let them know.
Yes.
Yes, it is a public
Yes.
meeting. And I would add, I'm sorry, yes,
Okay, what day?
July 22nd, 4 PM.
And what's the subject?
It's gonna be Oregon Economic Development Committee. And loose agenda will be update on town center, update from the director, and an open discussion of land use for committee members and administration.
And we'll have it in here.
Yes, it'll be in the, I imagine, council chambers. I would also ask that the individuals that spoke specific to land use of tonight's public participation, I would ask that we extend an invitation to them. And that's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. And I have nothing for my standing committee, therefore I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Second by Mr. Reeves. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
I wasn't home.